The world has seen many criminals, but few have left a mark like Pablo Escobar. Born in Colombia on December 1st, 1949, Pablo grew up in Medellin. His father was a farmer and his mother was a schoolteacher. As a child, Pablo had dreams like any other kid. He wanted to be a lawyer or a politician, maybe even the president. But as he grew older, his life took a different path. Pablo noticed one thing clearly: money meant power. He saw how the richest people could control politicians, judges, and even the law. This lesson hit him hard when his family faced money problems and he had to drop out of school. From that point, he made a promise to himself. He would earn a fortune by any means necessary. If he didn't make 1 million pesos by age 25, he told himself his life would be over. That hunger for wealth pushed him into crime. He started small. Pablo and his cousin, Gustavo Gaviria, sold fake diplomas, smuggled goods, and even stole tombstones. But these petty crimes weren't enough. By his teenage years, Pablo was stealing cars and kidnapping wealthy people for ransom. Sometimes he even killed people just to show power, even if he got the ransom. By 22, he had already become a millionaire. Pablo's rise was fast, but it also made him a target. Police tried to catch him several times, and in 1974 he was arrested for car theft. Even in jail, he was unstoppable. He learned to bribe police and judges, continuing his business from behind bars. His goal was always the same: more money, more power. In the 1970s, a huge opportunity appeared: cocaine. Smuggling cocaine from Colombia to the United States was booming, and people were becoming rich fast. Pablo saw the chance and jumped in. At first, he worked for other drug lords, learning the tricks of the trade: routes, smuggling methods, and building connections. But he quickly realized that working for others could only make him someone else's second in command. He wanted to be the boss. In 1975, Pablo began eliminating his rivals. He killed Fabio Restrepo, Medellin's largest cocaine trafficker at the time, forcing others to work under him. Fear became his weapon. Soon, he formed the Medellín Cartel with other criminals, including the Ochoa brothers and Carlos Lares. Pablo became the leader. He set up a network for producing, transporting, and selling cocaine, bribing officials along the way to keep himself safe. Escobar was clever with his smuggling. He hid cocaine in car tires, fish stomachs, TV sets, and even inside condoms. Pilots were rewarded with huge amounts of cash for each successful trip. The cartel thrived, and Pablo's wealth exploded. By the mid-1970s, his empire controlled most of Colombia's cocaine trade. He bought planes, boats, and even submarines to move drugs across borders. Yet, he never used cocaine himself. This gained him trust and loyalty from his people. By 1976, Pablo married Maria Victoria Henao, who was just 15 at the time. That same year, police found cocaine in his car tires and arrested him. But he wasn't in jail for long. Pablo bribed and intimidated his way out, and even had the 2 officers who arrested him killed a warning to anyone who might oppose him. This is how his famous rule, Plata o Plomo, began. It meant, take the bribe and join me, or face death. With this rule, judges, ministers, journalists, and police were all under his control. After escaping prison, Pablo Escobar's power grew faster than ever. His Medellín Cartel was now a full-blown empire. He controlled the production, transportation, and sale of cocaine across Colombia and into the United States. At the peak of his power, it is said that he supplied 80% of all cocaine entering the U.S. His cartel earned hundreds of millions of dollars each week, and Pablo himself became one of the richest people in the world. Pablo was so rich that he didn't count money in bills. Instead, he weighed it in kilograms. He had warehouses full of cash, but even then, rats would eat some of it every year. He spent money like water. He built luxurious houses, soccer fields, zoos, private islands, airplanes, and even submarines. Once, during winter, he burned millions of dollars just to keep his daughter warm. Yet no matter how much he spent, his wealth continued to grow. Escobar didn't just focus on drugs. He wanted power and popularity too. He began building houses, schools, hospitals, parks, and stadiums for the poor. The people of Medellin started to see him as a hero, a kind of Robin Hood. This gave him public support and made it harder for the government to act against him. With his growing influence, Pablo even ran for a seat in Colombia's parliament in 1982 and won. A criminal holding political power shocked the world. But Escobar's empire wasn't just about wealth and popularity, it was built on fear. His rule, Plata o Plomo, forced anyone in his way to either take a bribe or be killed. Police, journalists, judges, and politicians all had to obey him. Over his criminal career, he killed over 4,000 people, including hundreds of police officers, rivals, and innocent civilians. Bombings, kidnappings, and murders became tools to keep his enemies in check. By the late 1980s, Escobar's cartel had become international. Cocaine from Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, and Ecuador flowed into the U.S., Mexico, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, and Spain. To keep his empire running smoothly, he created a special island hub in the Bahamas called Norman's Cay, with planes, boats, and warehouses for storing cocaine. Other cartels had no choice but to work with him, paying him a cut of their profits. Pablo had truly become the central figure in the global cocaine trade. Despite all the violence, he maintained strict control over his empire. He never used cocaine himself, and he rewarded loyalty generously. Pilots and cartel members who successfully smuggled cocaine were paid huge amounts. But betrayal or opposition was punished brutally. Anyone who tried to challenge him faced death. Even when law enforcement closed in, Escobar had ways to protect himself. In 1991, he agreed to surrender under one condition. He would live in a prison of his own design, known as La Catedral. The Colombian government allowed it because he promised to give up fighting, but it was anything but a regular jail. La Catedral had luxury rooms, a soccer field, swimming pools, a bar, and even spaces for parties. Famous celebrities, athletes, and beauty queens visited him there. It was a palace disguised as a prison. Inside La Catedral, Escobar continued running his drug empire without interruption. Cocaine shipments and profits never stopped. But his freedom inside the prison came at a cost. Eventually, his violent acts, even inside the jail, angered the government. He tortured and killed 2 of his own men, forcing authorities to try and move him to a real prison. Using his network and intelligence, Pablo escaped before they could catch him. Once free, the hunt intensified. Colombian authorities, with U.S. support, formed a special unit called the Search Block to track him down. They offered a huge reward for information about his location. Rival groups, like Los Peeps, also began targeting him and his associates for revenge. After years of terror and controlling thousands of people, Pablo was now being hunted by both enemies and law enforcement. For a year and a half, Escobar stayed on the run. His vast wealth and loyal supporters kept him safe, but constant attacks and pressure made his life dangerous. Even the richest man in the world couldn't escape the consequences of his crimes. After escaping from La Catedral, Pablo Escobar became the most wanted man in Colombia. His empire, which once seemed untouchable, was slowly being dismantled. The Colombian government, with help from the US DEA, worked tirelessly to track him down. They traced his phone calls, followed his movements, and gathered intelligence on his hideouts. At the same time, rival groups like Los Peeps attacked his associates and weakened his cartel from the inside. Even with billions of dollars, Escobar's life on the run was filled with fear. He constantly had to move between safe houses, never staying in one place for too long. He relied on a network of loyal supporters to hide him, but the walls were closing in. Friends and former allies betrayed him, neighbors reported his locations, and enemies attacked anyone connected to him. After decades of ruling Colombia through fear and violence, Pablo was finally losing control. On December 2nd, 1993, Colombian forces, with U.S. technical support, located Escobar in a building in Medellin. He had just celebrated his 44th birthday with family and close associates, unaware that his location was known. When police arrived, he and his companion fled to the rooftop. A fierce gunfight broke out. Escobar fired back, but he was shot multiple times and killed. Some say he may have shot himself to avoid capture, as he had often stated he would rather die in Colombia than be imprisoned in the United States. Pablo Escobar's death marked the end of one of the most violent eras in Colombia's history. Over the course of his criminal career, he had killed more than 4,000 people, including police officers, journalists, politicians, and innocent civilians. Cities were rocked by bombings, kidnappings, and assassinations orchestrated by his cartel. His empire, which supplied most of the world's cocaine, began to collapse after his death. Yet, despite the terror he caused, Escobar's funeral drew 25,000 mourners, many of whom saw him as a hero. In Medellin, he had built schools, hospitals, churches, and housing for the poor. To them, he was a Robin Hood figure, someone who shared wealth with those in need. This duality, philanthropist to some, ruthless killer to others, defined Escobar's complex legacy. Even after his death, Escobar's influence lingered. The Medellín Cartel eventually fell, and rival cartels like the Cali Cartel took over the cocaine trade. But no one ever matched Escobar's combination of wealth, power, and fear. At his peak, he was worth approximately $25 billion, making him one of the richest men in the world. His empire stretched across countries, and his power seemed limitless. Pablo Escobar's life is a story of extremes: unimaginable wealth, extreme violence, immense power, and ultimate vulnerability. He lived in luxury palaces with personal zoos, private airplanes, helicopters, and islands. He ruled through both fear and generosity. Yet, despite all his riches and influence, he could not escape death. His story also had a lasting impact on Colombia and the world. Escobar's reign of terror led to reforms in law enforcement, stricter anti-drug policies, and international cooperation against drug trafficking. The U.S. increased DEA involvement, and Colombia improved intelligence operations to prevent such a criminal empire from rising again. Today, Pablo Escobar is remembered as both a criminal mastermind and a cautionary tale. His life has inspired countless documentaries, movies, and TV series, including the famous show Narcos. People study his life to understand the dangers of unchecked ambition, the power of wealth, and the consequences of crime. Ultimately, Escobar's legacy is a mix of fear and fascination. He achieved what very few have: absolute control over an industry, influence over a nation, and notoriety that lasts decades after his death. His story is a powerful reminder that no matter how strong or rich someone becomes through crime, the consequences of their actions are inescapable. Pablo Escobar, the king of cocaine, may be gone, but his life, crimes, and legend continue to capture the world's imagination. He remains one of the most infamous figures in modern history, a man whose ambition, ruthlessness, and wealth left a permanent mark on Colombia and the world.